Hi guys, in this episode I'm going to show you some dodge and burn tips and tricks for urban landscapes. Hi guys, and welcome to Kelvin Designs. My name is Kelvin and I design, and I guess that's why it's called Kelvin Designs. In this episode I'm going to show you how to do dodge and burn for urban landscapes. In the last episode I showed you how to do dodge and burn for portrait photography, which you can check out by clicking on the link right here. If you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel and get these episodes as they come out, very simple, click right here and you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to get the raw files and the goodies to all my episodes and this episode, click right here to subscribe to my newsletter, and on my website you just log in and you have access to everything. Very simple. Alright, so in this episode I'm going to show you some very simple tricks on how I do dodge and burn, specifically the black and white, which you can see the before and after right here. Here's the before and here's the after. Pretty impressive how a photo that doesn't look like you can get anything out of, and suddenly it becomes pretty dramatic. Very simple trick, let me show you. Alright, so once you have downloaded the file, it'll show up like this, and you can import this raw file into your Lightroom. I've already done that, so very simple. This is the after, this is the before, and I made a virtual copy so that we can kind of compare. Alright, so in the develop module in Lightroom, you basically go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do is actually just do a little bit of bringing down the highlights and opening up the shadows. Okay, so that's pretty simple. I don't want to overdo the shadows because I want to keep some of those some of that contrast in there, and I do add a little bit of clarity, but I'm going to go light on it on this one. All right, and then what I do is I create a brush. And we're going to go ahead and take the exposure down 4 stops, and I'm going to make the density 100%, and by scrolling up, making the brush pretty big, and I'm just going to go ahead and fill in everything. All right. I'm doing this with the brush so that if I do want to get rid of, if I want to tone down in some spots the fact that I have darkened the exposure considerably. Now notice how I got, some incredible detail in what looked like a completely blown out sky. Now in this brush, I do -4 in the exposure, and I do bring the highlights down a little bit. I'm trying to get some more detail in there. Maybe not that much. Just, let's see, to be safe, let's do -20. And on the clarity, I'm actually gonna. I usually add a little bit of clarity here, but you know what? I'm gonna on this one. I'm gonna do it individually. One thing about clarity is that you see that sort of glowing outline. That's clarity has a tendency to do that, and that's actually coming from my overall edit. And let's try to bring this down back to 0. We're gonna do the clarity on a sort of on a brush level, not on an overall level. Okay, so on the brush we got the -4. And what I like to do is I like to darken everything, and then I decide where am I going to bring light. So I'm essentially starting with as dark a canvas as possible without destroying it, and then I kind of come in and light it up. All right, one of the things, I just click on the black and white, and it'll automatically attribute the black and white default that Lightroom has. All right, so now in here, I'm going to go into the brushes here and create a new brush, and in this brush I'm going to bring the exposure up a little bit, and maybe some sharpness and some clarity, and I'm going to make it a little smaller. Oh, and my density, I don't want it to be too strong. I'm using a mouse for this. You can use a tablet, in which case it's sensitive to how much you do it, but in this case I'm doing it with a mouse. I'm going to go a little soft, 65. And let's try this out. I'm going in here and I'm just painting over the Eiffel Tower. All right, and pretty simple. I have a little bit of clarity, so I'm trying not to go too strong on the edges, more on the inside. Okay, shrink the brush a little bit. Oh, see that too much on the edge, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm trying to keep it on the inside. Okay. And something like this, bring it a little smaller, up in here. Okay, that's pretty good. So I'm bringing a little bit of light, not too much. I darkened it considerably, so I have quite a bit of leeway. I'm going to now create a new brush. This time I don't want any of the sharpness or the clarity, I just want some lightness, okay? And I'm going to go much softer, and I'm going to go in some areas like here and here. I'm trying to make it so that it's not filled with black the way it is, okay? And let's go a little more. Try not to get the too light areas, because the sky in the back is quite blown out from the original photo. Maybe get a little spot over here, a little spot over here. Just bring some lights, and we can see, okay, what if we bring it even more? That's not too bad. I like to do this in gradients, so let's not go too heavy on it. All right, and create a new brush again, same settings, and I'm gonna go ahead and similar areas, not the exact same. And the basis of this is that the complexity of the light in your photo makes for a pretty interesting photo. And all right, let's go in here. Let's bring up some light in here, up in here. Okay. All right, and now I'm gonna go a little, now I'm gonna do a new one, but this time go a little softer. So I'm gonna make bigger lights. So as if there was a light source over here, a light source over here, and a light source over here. I'm soft here in the density, I'm soft here in the exposure, so everything is kind of graded. I don't want to go too harsh. It's clearly a retouched photo, but I don't want it to be, I don't want you to see brush strokes or too evidently, overexposed by brush. It's not very nice to look at. All right, I can actually increase that a little bit, and I'm going to create another brush, and this time I'm going to make really big. I'm just going to sort of put a light right there in the middle. See that? Anyway, I like how that shows. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Maybe a little bit bigger here, a little bit bigger here. And what if I turn this up just a little bit? That's not bad. I don't want to make it too much. Okay, now I'm going to make a new brush, and this one, no exposure. This is just for clarity and for some sharpness, more clarity than sharpness. And let's turn the density down a little bit, and here we go. Okay, and then I'm going to basically try to get the Eiffel Tower without too much of the edges to give it sort of that, it gives it a very sharp and steel-like look. All right, my density is a little too low. Here we go. It kind of almost looks like I'm making the back a little blurry, but I'm really just sharpening. It gives it a fake sense of a shallow depth of field, which I think makes an interesting photo. Try not to get too much on the edges, because like I said, it gives you that sort of a glowing look, which I'm trying to avoid. Okay. So it's a little different than the earlier one that I showed, but I'm actually liking how, look at that. Before, after, just in a few minutes. And the trick is you really darken everything, and you're like, this is where I want some lighting. In fact, there's some places where I feel like it should be a little darker, so I can go back here. I'm like, all right, I use this to lighten up. I'm gonna now go in here, and with the negative brush, by holding the Alt key, I'm gonna go and say, okay, well, you know what? I want this to be a little darker, a little bit darker, all right? Kind of brings the front out a little more. Maybe all here, I want all this background kind of darker. All right, what else do I got? I got this one. This one I can do a little bit of the same, just a little darker over here. Yeah, it's nicer. So I know that was really simple, but the trick is try to darken everything, and then you decide where am I lighting up by various brushes and slowly by gradient, and then you can kind of go back in the future and kind of tone it down if you've overdone it. Clearly, sometimes when you're retouching, you tend to overdo the retouching. You come back and you're like, ooh, that looks a little too heavy. So it's nice to just tone it down a little bit after a few minutes. Come back and take a look at it again. And I hope you like this episode, and I will see you next time.